At a newsstand, headlines screamed of rising tensions, police raids, intelligence failures, a collage of mugshots. Young, angry, faceless men, the kind no one remembers until it's too late. Dark Margins presents The Only Good Thing I Ever Did by Ian Hand. Martin sat in a cracked plastic deck chair, a sweating Chang beer in one hand and a cigarette smouldering in the other. The sun hung low over the Thai shoreline, blinding and relentless, turning the ocean into hammered brass. He watched tourists, with bright shorts and even brighter sunburn, splash in the shallows like children. He wasn't one of them. Martin hadn't been a tourist for years. Tourists took pictures and went home. Martin had no home left to go to. He drained the bottle, wiped sweat from his brow with the back of his hand, and thought, as he always did when the beer hit hard enough, of everything he'd ruined. There'd been a wife once, kids too, a mortgage, a company car, Christmas mornings that meant something. Then came the affair, the fights, the drinking, the job loss, more drinking. One by one, the cards collapsed, leaving him here, a middle-aged wreck on a foreign beach where no one knew his name. He'd almost found comfort in it. Almost. That's when he heard the shouting. At first he ignored it. Beaches generated noise. Vendors hawking trinkets, jet skis whining across the bay, kids shrieking like gulls. But this was different. Urgent. He squinted against the glare and saw a knot of people near the water's edge. A young man lay face down in the surf, limbs limp, waves washing over his body. A broken surfboard bobbed nearby. Before Martin knew what he was doing, he was on his feet, beer dropped, cigarette swallowed by the sand. He waded in, grabbed the kid under the arms, and hauled him onto the beach, the surfboard still strapped to the kid's ankle. "Call an ambulance!" Martin shouted. The young man's chest was slick with seawater, his head lolling to one side. A deep, bloody gash stretched across his forehead. His lips were blue. Martin dropped to his knees and started CPR, counting under his breath like he remembered from some long-ago workplace safety course. 1 elephant, 2 elephant, 3 elephant, 4. People gathered around, useless, murmuring in panic. "Come on," Martin growled, pounding on the kid's sternum. "Don't you bloody quit on me. You've got a life to live, things to do." For a moment, nothing. Just the hiss of the surf and Martin's ragged breathing. Then, with a convulsive cough, water burst from the young man's mouth. He gasped, shuddering, and his eyelids fluttered open. A cheer went up around them. Someone clapped Martin on the back. "You saved him!" Paramedics arrived, lifting the kid onto a stretcher. Martin caught one last glimpse of the blood-stained bandage as they carried him away. He sat back in the sand, heart hammering, hands trembling. The cheers already fading behind him. "Jesus Christ," he muttered, lighting another cigarette. For the first time in years, Martin had done something good. London, 10 years later. The room was small and dim, curtains drawn against a pale dawn. A single bed, a Gideon Bible left half open on the nightstand. The television murmured in the corner, low and indistinct. The man stirred, rolling to his side. A jagged scar glistened on his forehead in the sliver of morning light, an indelible mark from a beach where he had once died and been reborn for a divine purpose. He sat up, expression blank, and dressed with quiet efficiency. Jeans, dark jacket, gloves. He checked a map, then folded it, tucking it into his pocket. From the drawer in the desk, he retrieved a passport under a false name, a burner phone, and a thumb drive. He paused for a second, then slid on a pair of cheap sunglasses. Downstairs, The receptionist in the hotel lobby barely noticed him as he passed through. He walked out into drizzle and traffic, slipping unnoticed into the London morning. At a newsstand, headlines screamed of rising tensions, police raids, intelligence failures. A collage of mugshots, young, angry, faceless men. The kind no one remembers until it's too late. In an underground car park, a white van waited. Two men sat inside, silent, their faces shadowed by hoods. The driver nodded once. The man with the scar opened the rear doors of the van and climbed in, closing them behind him, sealing out the noise of the street. Inside, it was dim and cool, silent but for the soft hum of the cooling fans. He pulled back an oil-stained tarp. Before him, bolted to the steel chassis, sat the device. It looked brutal. A crude metal cylinder the size of a generator, encased in fireproof sheeting, foam, and taped-down thermal blankets. Bolts and weld seams ran along its flanks like surgical scars. On one end, a cylindrical barrel protruded, ringed with scratched metal and grease-smudged labels in Cyrillic. Thick cables snaked from the device into a battered control box. A steel casing with a cheap red LED, a palm-sized keypad, and a blinking green light that meant everything was primed and ready. And a final failsafe, a lead-lined switch he'd wired himself, which would complete the firing sequence once they were in position. He laid a gloved palm on the warm casing, then slid the tarp back in place. The man with the scar climbed into the passenger seat. No one spoke. The van rolled out into the city. Across the river, in a quiet Soho pub, Martin slouched on a bar stool. The place was mostly empty, just a few early drinkers and the barkeep polishing glasses. He was older now, bloated by drink and regret, telling the bartender a story he'd told before. "I made a mess of everything," Martin slurred. "My wife, my kids, my job. They all gave up on me. Hell, even my liver's given up on me. But," he raised a finger like an exclamation mark, "there was one thing. Just one. You may not believe it looking at me now, but for 5 minutes of my shit-stained life, I was a hero. A good Samaritan. I saved some poor sod's life. A complete stranger on a beach far, far away." He waved his hand in the air to illustrate just how far away it was. "I dragged him out of the sea, pounded on his chest till the bastard started breathing again. Big, ugly cut on his head, where his surfboard caught him a good one, I remember. Could have just let him die, but I didn't. Maybe I saved him for some future destiny. Perhaps he'll become a great artist, or a scientist, or an entrepreneur." The van weaved through traffic, gliding past landmarks that had stood for hundreds of years. The driver muttered a prayer. The second man checked his watch. The man with the scar stared out of the rain-slicked windows at the grey morning beyond. Big Ben came into view. The van slowed. Back in the pub, Martin ordered another scotch. He tapped his glass, lost in thought. "I do wonder sometimes," he said, mostly to himself, "what he did with his life. What he's doing now." The van pulled to the curb just over Westminster Bridge. The man with the scar climbed out and into the back. He checked the wires, the timer, the trigger, took a deep breath and reached for the detonator. Martin swirled the last inch of whiskey in his glass, raised it in a lonely toast. "Here's to me, and the only good thing I ever did." A flash of glaring light. The ground shook. A wave of white-hot fire rolled through central London, obliterating brick, steel, concrete, flesh, and bone. The pub's windows imploded. 1,000 shards of glass scythed through the smoke-filled room. The force hit like a freight train. Tables flipped, stools flew, and the walls folded inward. Martin's raised glass shattered in his hand. A searing heat slammed into him, peeling skin from bone before he even hit the floor. The air ignited. Fire tore through the bar, setting anything combustible ablaze. Alcohol, wood paneling, human bodies. The ceiling collapsed. The floor rose to meet it. In that instant, before sound returned, before screams could rise, Martin was gone. Gone as if he had never existed. The bar, the street, the buildings beyond, obliterated in a heartbeat. News reports called it the worst terror attack in history. The centre of London left in ruins by an improvised nuclear device. Thousands dead. Radiation rained down for months afterwards. Thousands more would die later. No one ever claimed responsibility